Hello everybody, welcome to this quick sniff episode. Today I'm bringing on my trainer, Natalie Morris. Natalie wanted to talk to you about a topic that has been very important to her that she wanted to share with everybody. Natalie, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us about what you wanted to talk about that's important to you as a sport dog trainer and handler that you see happen quite a bit.
So today we're just going to go over basically maintaining our criteria for our indication as we're building our dog's search out, or just working on indication by itself. How do you maintain criteria as you continue advancing that with your dog?
Okay. And what are some of the things that people are dealing with that you wanted to share?
A big issue that we see on the sport side of things is our dog goes into indication, we call alert, the dog breaks indication, and then a lot of times we end up reinforcing that, and we're basically, starting to peel away our indication every time we do that. So basically just working on making sure even if you get your yes and you're ready to reward your dog, that you're going to wait and make sure that you're rewarding the behavior that you want to continue seeing with your indication. So if you want your dog to, hold a sit or stay locked onto odor, we would need to be marking and paying that as opposed to having them come up from it and then incidentally reinforcing that because we're excited in the moment and all of that stuff. So really just maintaining criteria for our dogs and then keeping that clarity for them of what is actually paying them once they go into indication.
Okay, we'll cover that right now.
Okay, so we're just going to go over maintaining criteria, mostly relating to our indication behavior. So I'm going to go through a couple of videos with Gus. So first we're going to go over, work and build your 3Ds independently from Scentwork initially, using simple, lineups or something like an odor pays or a dopamine box. It's nice to work on some of these behaviors separate from your search so that if it goes badly or if you have a mistake, you're not also not reinforcing that nice entire search sequence that you might have had before. So if you break it down and work some of this in a more fundamental type of environment, a lot of times that's going to be a little bit better. Just kind of break it down further for your dog so you're not kind of lumping everything together at once. So once you're happy with your indication, in a simple setup, that's where you would start kind of taking it more so out and about and doing more realistic searches. So increase criteria at the appropriate pace for your dog. So just because, your friend in your training class is asking for a 5-second indication does not mean that you need to be doing the same thing. If your dog is doing really great at 3 seconds, but at 4 seconds, you start to have some issues, make sure that you're really building it at the right pace for your dog and you're not trying to go too fast with them before they're ready for that step. The same thing when it comes to introducing distractions and that kind of thing, and make sure you're moving at the right pace with that dog. Prevent chaining in unwanted behaviors such as a look back or aggressive responses. Use resets to help with that chaining aspect. I see a lot of dogs where the owner is having an issue with their indication and they think that the dog just always comes off at 3 seconds. But a lot of times once we really look at it, it turns out that the dog thinks the actual indication is I hold for 3 seconds, then I look at mom, then I hold for 3 seconds, then I look at mom. So the dog actually thinks that coming up and looking and then going back is part of that indication behavior. So we have to really work on making sure we're not teaching the dog that that's part of it. We're building that duration at the right pace so that the dog is really seeing that, okay, if I just keep my nose here or I hold this sit or whatever your indication is, that is what is getting me reinforcement, not this, kind of pokey stuff that we can see sometimes. So a lot of that comes down to either going too fast with trying to build duration and then you get the look back and now you've chained it in. Or in some cases, you have trained your dog that it should always be 3 seconds. And then when you start to try to build duration, you have an issue because you're kind of breaking that rule that they thought that you had with them of I do this for 3 seconds and then I'm done. So sometimes we actually have to kind of fight through that and start working those longer durations so our dog really understands that that is the criteria, is to just hold it for however long. So some different things with that, but we do want to think about chaining in behaviors, what we could be doing with that. And a good way to kind of offset that is to use resets. So if you get something you don't like, your dog paws it at something like that, just call them away. And you can do a reset so you're not reinforcing that behavior within your next rep. So this is a video of Gus here. So Gus is working odor, and he comes up into it. And there's like something on the back of this that he doesn't want to put his paws on. So you see he's kind of poking up.
Yes.
I say alert, I get my yes. I'm going to wait to reinforce. So right there, I waited to reinforce until his nose was back at odor where I would want it. So he couldn't hold indication there because there was something on the back of there that he's not putting his paws on. So I didn't wait for him to totally freeze up right there because he kind of couldn't. I just marked when his nose went back there and paid him on that. But what I wouldn't want to pay is where he came off and kind of looked around. So I don't want an indication where he gets odor and then comes off and looks at me, right? So I'm going to wait for him to go back onto indication or back at source and then pay that. So I'm staying consistent with what my dog is learning gets reinforced. So here's another video of Gus working, and then we end up with the distractor. So he starts working odor. It's right here under this little box there. So he's working odor, but right as he starts going into his nice indication of a freeze, pigeon flaps. I give him a little bit of a verbal correction there. I don't necessarily recommend that. You need to kind of know your dog and what they're going to be okay with. He's a border collie. He's a little on the soft side, so I do have to be kind of cognizant of that and aware of how, a verbal reprimand might affect him within that. But he handled it really well. He went back into full indication, and he was able to get paid on that. But that was just an example of he came off indication. I'm not going to pay that, right? I'm going to wait for him to work back to it, hold indication, and then keep that criteria, right, of the nice freeze up. This is a video of me just working through some proofing of distracting. So I'm throwing a toy, which is really hard for him. So I'm going to throw the toy. Let's see if we can get it to go. So he goes into indication. I throw the toy. He breaks. I'm going to reset actually with my toy. So I'm just resetting the toy. I'm going to throw it back down. He holds it that time. He gets marked and he gets paid. So then we play on that. So just kind of showing, you can wait for that nice behavior. Even if they come off for a second, just make sure the end behavior that you end up paying and reinforcing is the behavior you want to see in the future. So that nice solid indication. So you can always kind of hold back for a second and let that, let that go through so that you can pay your final indication. And then a lot of times when we're building that, we're not going to ask for a ton of duration initially. This is a puppy I raised Quill. Just doing a simple search. This is probably one of the very first searches that he did on this wall. Outside of something like a pipe. So very new to him. And we had a nice indication built up, maybe like just on tins. So you'll see he's gonna freeze up just for a real quick second there, and I immediately pay that. So this is a new context for him. I'm not gonna ask for a ton of duration where I might get a look back, or maybe he would get frustrated and paw or something like that. We're paying it pretty quickly initially, and then as he gains experience, we're going to go back and start requiring that duration again and only reinforcing when we get that duration. And then this is just a video of me working Gus on some challenging toy distractors, basically. So he's coming up. I'm working this separate from a search, right? So it's just the 110 really that he's working. I'm not asking him to do a whole search problem. And then I'm just doing some toy proofing of, hey, if I throw your toy around, will you stay on your indication? Kind of overtraining that, right? We won't encounter that. But at a trial or something, we might have, there's a lot more variables in play with that. So if he can hold it while I throw his toy around, I'm probably pretty good at a trial saying alert and, all the stress that a trial brings. So yeah, just a little video on maintaining criteria in your indication. Just because your judge says yes doesn't mean you have to immediately pay. You want to make sure that you're consistently paying and reinforcing the behavior that you want to see in the future. So if you want your dog to hold a solid indication, whether it's a freeze up or a sit or even a look back, have something that you stay consistent with and know what criteria you're expecting from your dog and just maintain that. So each session that you go through, have an idea of where you're at with that and what you're expecting from your dog, and then just hold that. So just because the dog is correct, you don't need to go in and pay immediately while they're, looking back at you, waiting for their toy. Wait for them to really hold that behavior. And I think for the dog, it ends up really giving them a lot of clarity for future training, that they know exactly how to gain that reinforcement. They're not confused or unsure of how do I get mom to pay me, they know that they have something that they can do that will tell you, hey, there's odor here, and also, you know, I've completed the behavior and I'd like to get paid, and something consistent that you really build a lot of clarity into. So I hope that video helped you out a little bit, you guys. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments, and we'll see you next time.
Okay, so I hope that kind of cleared things up for you guys as far as what we can do to keep our dog's indication looking good as we begin to increase our duration, distraction, and distance with them as we continue to build that behavior.
So thank you again for coming on. I know we're going to have more tips coming up from Natalie, helping everybody who does the various different sports that are out there. Natalie currently does our CSDT classes, so if you want to become a sport dog trainer, Natalie will be the one teaching you coming up, along with some of the times I will be out there and we'll be doing it together. So stay tuned for all of that. And until the next time, we'll catch you then later.